Hey guys, it's been a while since I've been on my channel. It's been quite some time, and I've taken some time for myself, and I gotta be honest, it's been really difficult to stay consistent with videos, but I'm gonna try the best that I can with the videos. I am on here today because I wanted to share my story. And this story is related to my journey towards becoming an independently licensed clinician or therapist. For those of you who don't know, in order to become an independently licensed clinician, as a social worker in the social work profession, the person needs to take an exam after graduation in order to have a graduate licensure, which gives the person the opportunity or opens the doors for the person to start providing therapy or direct social work clinical services. However, the person would need to be under the supervision of an independently licensed clinical social worker in order to do his or her work. And the person would need to be under supervision for 2 years and complete 3,000 hours of supervised work. That includes client work, that includes individual and or group supervision. Typically, this takes someone 2 years to complete. After those 2 years are done, or after those hours are completed, the person can apply to their state board in order to get approved to take the ASWB, Association of Social Work Boards, licensure exam. Now, this is a second exam. Remember, the person would have to have taken a graduate licensure exam when they first graduated. After the 3,000 hours are met and the 2 years under supervision are met, the person would then apply for this ASWB clinical exam, which is for the person to become independently licensed. The person cannot practice the social work, clinical social work, or clinical therapy independently without having to pass this exam. And so that being said, basically, this exam is currently a necessary requirement in order to practice clinical social work independently. That being said, this is the journey I have been on in order to practice clinical social work or provide therapy independently. Like I said, it typically takes someone 2 years. For some people, it takes them 1 try or 2 tries to pass this exam. Either the master's exam or the clinical exam. Sometimes it doesn't take several tries for some people to be able to pass. In my case, I passed my graduate licensure exam super quickly. That was my first try. I remember I only studied for like 2 weeks and I passed the exam, no problem. I passed this graduate licensure exam in 2015. Since 2015, I started my work as a licensed graduate social worker, and my focus has always been clinical work with children, teens, and adolescents, and most recently, young college-aged adults. As a licensed graduate social work, or as a licensed master's level social worker, I have been able to provide therapy for 9 years, going on 10 years. However, I have had to do it under supervision. I was approved by my state board to take the clinical exam in 2018. And go figure, what does someone do when they're approved? They take the exam, right? And I started taking the exam in 2018. Come to find out, I didn't pass the exam. A lot of people told me, hey, don't get discouraged, try again, you're gonna do it again. I thought I only needed to try again maybe one more time and I would get there. Tried the second time, I didn't pass. Tried the third time, I didn't pass. Tried the fourth time, I didn't pass. Tried the fifth time, I didn't pass. And it wasn't due to lack of effort. I was studying for 3 months, 4 months, sometimes even a year. I was going to study groups. I bought programs. I bought books. I bought practice exams. I did everything I could, everything that was in my power to prepare for this exam. I also knew that an exam wouldn't define me. I also knew that I had a lot of great experience. I had already had experiences working in a nonprofit setting, in the government setting. I had experiences working in private practice. I had experiences working at a university. I had plenty of experience as a clinician, as a therapist. And I knew that all of the questions on this exam, I knew the answer to, and I knew what the right thing was. But for some reason, I didn't pass. I wasn't that person who passed on the first try this time around. Every time I saw fail on that paper, I got discouraged. I cried. I'm such a crier, and I did cry. I would leave the exam room crying. I would leave the exam room crying, and I'm getting emotional thinking back at it because even though it was just an exam, it was just that one thing I needed to practice clinical social work independently. Since 2019, I knew I wanted to start my own business. I knew I wanted to start my own practice. I love working with children, and I just knew that I would start a child practice. And every time I failed, it just meant I couldn't do that. And it had repercussions. It had repercussions that were significant for me. For example, when as a graduate licensed person, you don't have as much opportunities as the person who is independently licensed. Therefore, you are limited to the kind of jobs you take. You are limited to the kind of pay you receive. It had like big financial repercussions for me. And it just held me back. It just held me back from growing. I had to work multiple jobs in order to just be okay financially. And we don't do this work for the money. That's not the reason why people would go into social work, for the money. But we have to be real. It is 2024. There is inflation. There is many things that as a clinician, like, we are human beings, we need to be okay. And the way, if we're not okay in our personal lives, we don't show up, and we can show up professionally to meet with our clients, but something will be missing in the work that we do because we need to be 100% okay. And so this meant like I was held back financially. I'm also a Latina, so I have aspirations to give back to my family. I have aspirations to be there for my family financially. And just every time I failed, I couldn't do that, or I was set back. Not only financial repercussions, there were mental repercussions, because this really, really hurt my soul. This really hurt my self-esteem. And I began to question, am I a good fit for this profession? Is it meant to be for me to be in this profession? There were also other repercussions. My career advancement. Like I said, I wanted to start a child practice, and I couldn't grow the child practice that I've been wanting to grow for a while. I also wanted to be independent. I had been doing this work for nearly a decade. I did not want to be under supervision anymore. No offense to my supervisors. A lot of them were kind. A lot of them were supportive. A lot of them rooted for me. And shout out to my supervisors who rooted for me, who supported me, who believed in me, who knew that I actually didn't really need to be under supervision, because I was qualified enough to not be in that level of my career anymore, who just really wanted me to pass this exam, and who advocated for me to pass this exam, and advocated for there to be changes in the requirements that are needed to be independently licensed. So it really squandered my career advancement to not pass this exam. And so I just was feeling like, in all aspects, this inability for me to pass the test held me back. And it wasn't until a few years ago, or maybe not even a year ago, that the ASWB revealed data that this exam is not created for people like me to pass. Latino social workers, Latinx social workers, English, folks whose English is a second language, people with disabilities, women, older individuals, people of color. All of those groups were less likely to pass this exam, because the exam is systemically racist, and it is systemically created for people like me to not pass. This gave me some relief, because it made me kind of realize, wait, it isn't really about you or the knowledge that you have. It's a big factor is how this exam was created. Even though it brought a little bit of relief to know that, it also brought frustration and anger that this exam was created to not help people. Every time I would go into this exam, the questions had nothing to do with the work. By the way, I didn't tell you, on the 6th try, I passed the exam, and I am now an independently licensed clinician, finally, right? And so this time around, when I tried to pass this exam, the questions had nothing to do with what I do, but it was like the worst exam this time around. I didn't know if I was gonna pass. It was the worst exam. It was just like really confusing, but I did pass. So it almost feels like you're going into a game, just not knowing how you're gonna do, even though you tried. This time around, I studied for over a year, and the whole time in the exam not knowing if I was going to pass, not feeling confident because of how the exam is created. Now, you may say a lot of standardized tests are like this. I understand that a lot of standardized tests are like this, and I really hope there would be change. In this particular scenario, this standardized test being like this impacts people's livelihoods. There are more people like me, more Spanish-speaking Latina professionals, more professionals of color, more professionals with disabilities, etc., who are not passing the exam, and all they want to do is advance in their careers. You know why? Because we are needed in this field. There is a large wait list of clients waiting to be seen. There are people who are looking to be served for people like us. There's clients who only speak Spanish and need a Spanish-speaking clinicians. There's clients who would benefit from the expertise of a clinician of color. And this exam is just creating barriers. It's making the shortage of clinicians, social workers, even worse. It is limiting people. Thank God I passed the master's exam, because if I didn't pass the master's exam, we wouldn't even be here talking about being a clinician or working at Home Depot or at the Walmart or somewhere, right? Like, if I wouldn't have passed the exam, who knows? All of my master's education would have just been thrown out the window, right? Like, we would be in a really bad situation. And you know what? There are people who are not passing the master's level exam. Maybe they're not working at Home Depot. It was just an example. Maybe they are working at Catholic Charities or at or being a case manager. There's nothing wrong with working for these organizations, right? Nothing wrong. But their calling was, or their whole reason to be in the social work profession or in this field was not to be a case manager. Maybe it is to be a clinician. Maybe it is to start their own practice. Maybe it is to be a supervisor. Maybe it is to be in management roles. Like, you cannot imagine the lack of diversity there is for certain social workers who are in leadership. There's no diversity in leadership. How many times did I want a Latina clinician to be my supervisor? I had to go and find that supervisor who did it independently, and I had to go and pay her, because the supervisors I had assigned at my work did not share my identity, did not share the cultural, background that I had. And so that is because the exam is really getting in the way from people like me to be in leadership, for people who have a diverse perspective to be in positions of leadership, to be clinicians. My whole perspective on this has changed. I used to just be so big on, oh my gosh, it's so awesome to have your master's. Oh my gosh, it's so awesome to have 5-10 letters behind your name. Boy, was I wrong. You don't need that. Yes, you technically do need that, right? Society says you do. But the reality is that you don't need that to serve people and to do what God, I'm very big on God and spirituality, to do what God has called you to do. You do not need it. You do not. All you need is passion, skill, talent, gift, and dedication. That's all you need. That's all you need. Trust me that that's all you need. And you know how I discovered that? Because I had to work with what I have without the independent licensure next to my name. I didn't let that stop me. I was booked to do speaking engagements. I was booked to do workshops. I was booked to write blog posts. I was hired at a private practice. I started seeing clients through the therapy directories. I created a YouTube channel. I was featured on a podcast without the licensure. You know why? Because I didn't let that stop me from what God has called me to do. And if you're not licensed and you want to be in this field, you shouldn't let that happen. As a matter of fact, this is an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to tell you something. If you want to help people, you do not need 8 years. I'm sorry, you do not need 6 years of education under your belt. You do not. You do not need 6 plus years, plus supervision, all of that years under your belt. You do not. You do not need 6, you do not need 2 degrees and 3, you do not need 2 degrees, 2 years and 3,000 hours of training under your belt. You do not need that. The world is changing so much. After the pandemic, there is so much need for helping professionals. The helping professional world is not just therapists anymore. It is coaches. There's mental health coaches. There's mental health coaches. There's motivational coaches. The helping profession has broadened. There are certification programs. There are different ways of getting the education you need to be able to help people and still make an impact, and even a larger impact. You do not need what traditionally society has says you need to help people. You absolutely don't. You could be a coach, you could be a pastor, you could be an advocate. You could start your own nonprofit without this licensure. If you want to go through the process to become a therapist, go for it. I'm your supporter, I'm your encourager. But if you want to take a different path, I also support that. Because I'll tell you what, I wanted to take a different path, and I was gonna take a different path if I didn't pass this test. And also, I am taking additional paths. I am taking additional paths. I am now providing life coaching services as well. And I'm happy to help anyone who needs coaching in 2024. Just send me a message, email me. I feel empowered. You know, when I passed the test, I didn't know what to experience. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it was happening. And I cried, and I had joy, and I had excitement. because there hasn't been changes yet that say we don't need an exam to start doing some of the things that I want to do, like starting a child practice, for example. So I knew that was going to open so many doors, but I also cried because I didn't give up. I was resilient and I gave it a go. This exam took so much of my energy and so much of my money because you have to pay each time you take it. Therefore, there are financial benefits that this organization takes, as a result of people's failure. I couldn't believe it. I called people who supported me. My mom was the first person who I called. My mom just has supported me day in and day out, and she believed in me, and she continues to believe in me. And so I am sharing my story with you right now. I am sharing what I've gone through. I actually documented all the pain I experienced every time I failed the exam. And I lost the footage, so I only have like a few clips. And this is when I was studying and preparing for it. Just squeeze in some studying because I have free time before my meeting at 12, before a work meeting. So I'm trying to get as much studying as I can for my exam, October 31st. I can do this. I feel the fire. I feel the momentum. I can do this. And I'm going to aim for October 31st. I'm hoping not to reschedule. I'm hoping to be ready by. This was my face when I failed. These are all the times that I tried. And I just didn't give up. And I would see, I worked at a clinic where we had a very thoughtful supervisor. And every time someone passed their exam, my supervisor would put balloons outside of their door. And I always wondered, when is it going to be my turn? And I always wondered, when is it going to be my turn? When is it going to be me? Well, it was never my turn while I was working there. It became my turn this year. And actually, my current supervisor sent me a lovely money tree plant as a surprise. It isn't about the gifts, but it is really nice when someone recognizes all your hard work. I'm excited to share that I'm opening my child practice in January 2024. I will be providing therapy services in English and in Spanish. I'm so excited to be serving the children, teen, and young adults and their families who can benefit from my services and my work. I'm so excited for my practice. It is called Child Haven Counseling. Se llama Consejería Haven de Niños. And y'all can give it a follow if you want to support. And I'm so excited that it's launching in January. And it's a great way to start the new year. And so this is my story and my experience. I hope it could benefit you. Again, if you're thinking about being in the clinical field, go for it. Let me know if I can be of support for you. I'm going to share with you guys my email. Let me know if I can be of a support for you in any way that I can, in any way that I can encourage you. If you're struggling to pass the test, don't give up, that you will. You will get there. You will get there. If you want to go a different path, go for it too. You are capable, and you are capable of success.
Es malo ese examen, realmente como lo hacen. Ese examen Sí.
Ay, pero usted no se inscríbase, hermano, para el otro mes. Ahí yo le voy a ayudar para que el otro mes está mejor.
Sí.
¿Verdad? Está bonito.
Sí. Mami, son mentiras. Pasa el examen.
Yo lo sabía. Me están mintiendo, dije. Es que, ¿sabes qué? Vos me hubieras llamado llorando.
¿Verdad?
A mí no me engañas. Es que yo sentí en mi espíritu que lo habías pasado.
Bien usted dijo, ¿verdad, mami? Con confianza.
Yo te lo dije, que yo lo sentí pues en el espíritu.
Here. There's a lot of people here, but I feel like I'm walking out of those American Idol auditions when people are saying you're going to Hollywood, but this is where I'm going. I'm going to continue to follow my purpose and keep on going and do the things I want to, that God has called me to do. And I can't believe it. I've taken this test 6 times and it's freezing. It's like 10 degrees out here, but I'm not cold because I feel happy and I feel excited and I want to cry because like it's taking me so many times to take it. And you know what? It's not because I'm not smart. It's not because I couldn't do it. It's not because God was not helping me. It's because this exam is fucking rigged. And I hope they change it. I hope they eliminate it. Today's exam was so tricky. Like the responses were not even like relevant at all. Like I don't understand how they make these freaking things. But I passed. I don't look great. I don't care. It happened. I called my mom crying. She's my ride or die. I called my friends. I called my supervisor. Oh my God.
See me as a prayer, nothing I'm afraid of, and I can have it all. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let go. Level up, 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 level up. All this on me so yummy, all this sauce so yummy. No, you want this yummy, yummy all in your tummy. Level up, 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 level up. All this on me so yummy, all this sauce so yummy. No, you want this yummy, yummy all in your tummy. They freeze get dropped like weight. Team love don't want no hate. I'm grinding, I'm shining, up, I'm on my way. They gotta never settle. This view is so much better. I'm chilling, I'm winning, like on another level.
During our generation. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is